You're watching Business Morning on Channels Television. So one of the top stories and developing stories that we're tracking today is the reopening of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, 6 weeks after it was temporarily closed down for renovations of the runway. And speaking to Channels Television correspondent earlier on, Lucky Obewe-Sawode, he says that all is said and still corroborating what the airport manager Mahmoud Sani said in that report, that the airport will be open on time. But we've got early comers. Ethiopian Airlines is has been cleared to land today, so that particular airline will be landing at the airport at about 11 a.m. and according to Lucky, most of the operators and others who have actually had to wait for 6 weeks before coming back to the airport are quite excited to have business resuming. And so we'll be tracking this particular story for you, and you can track it along with us. Just log on to Channels website, channelstv.com, and you can also follow us on any of our social media platforms to keep up to date with this developing stories. And if you're there, if you happen to be at anywhere around the airport, let's know your experience and what you think of the renovation that has been done at that airport. So we're turning our attention now to the commodities market. Quite a lot to talk about, especially coming back from the Easter, and then the forex market intervention, the forex interventions by the Central Bank of Nigeria going a long way to improve liquidity. By how much? Okwemi Oguntade, a senior economic research analyst with Financial Derivatives Company, joins me now on the program. Good morning to you, Okwe. It's great to have you on the program.
Good morning. Hi.
So talk to us a little bit about some of the burning economic issues that have been highlighted in today's report from FTC.
Well, like you rightly mentioned earlier, the CBN has decided to intervene again at the BDCs, and they're increasing liquidity in the market from 10,000 we saw earlier to $40,000 per week, which is about a 300% increase. And this is largely because we've seen that liquidity in that segment has been short, despite the fact that there's been a dollar glut in the market, at the banks and, for invisibles and all that. But we've also seen that despite the fact that there's been a dollar glut, we've seen that, the naira at the parallel market has depreciated. And I guess what the CBN is trying to do here, they've noticed that there's been a bit lopsided in terms of their supply of dollars towards, invisibles and the banks. So they're trying to balance off the liquidity by, putting some money into the BDCs to ensure that, the demand that we're seeing in that segment is also satisfied, to ensure that the rate at the parallel market also appreciates.
But then you also highlighted in this report that there's been an unprecedented naira scarcity because interbank rates rose sharply to about 300%. Could you explain that a little bit more?
So while we're saying that there's been a lot of forwards in the market, they've even reduced the maturity of those forwards to about 30 days. And we've also seen that with these forwards, there's been a lot of withdrawal of naira in the market, so to speak, to satisfy this forwards. In addition to that, we've seen a lot of bond sales in the market, and this has led to cash shortages in the market and naira shortages in the market. And that's why we saw that in intraday trading, we saw the interbank rates going as high as 300% before it closed off the day at 60% in the market.
And that's where the market actually is starting from today, and there's just 4 days of trade, and then the Central Bank of Nigeria will continue to intervene in the FX market, and we still have treasury bill sale and maturity also for this week. But another thing, at least it's a good news, when I read this report I was quite excited about it. Economic activities are increasing, including inventories for the purchasing managers index is what was highlighted in the report. Yes,
with the improvement in dollar liquidity in the market, we've seen that a lot of the traders and manufacturers are building up inventory levels, because at the end of the day there's still a bit of uncertainty about the sustainability of CBN's policy, even though since February they've been persistent with their injections into the market.
But they've given that constant assurance that they will continue to provide liquidity for the market.
Yes, they've given that constant assurance, but when you see the parallel market rate depreciating despite the injection, it brings the question if this is really sustainable. So we're saying that manufacturers and traders are, trying to build up inventory levels. That's why we saw the FBN PMI, we saw inventory levels going, the sub-index went from about 48 to 55. So it's kind of a buffer in case, or, some security or precautionary measure in case things go the other way, as opposed to maintaining the appreciation in the market. So that's why we're saying that there's improved economic activity there, because manufacturers are trying to take precautionary measures in the event that the naira does not move along or tag along the way they would prefer.
Yeah, but then you see, because of this, well, I would just probably want to sit on the fence on this one, because you have dollars inflow coming from the Central Bank of Nigeria to the various, critical sectors of the economy, including the manufacturers, and especially for the SMEs, and most of manufacturers fall under that category anyway. And even though $20,000 per quarter really isn't cutting it, isn't enough for them, but at least it goes a long way to show that there's commitment from the Central Bank of Nigeria. And now we're having foreign portfolio investors still on the sidelines, though, but looking in and expecting that something will happen. Don't you think that this will also provide some form of shortfall for them?
Well, you see, what's happening in the market here is there's uncertainty going on in the market, because people aren't really, like the CBN has tried to assure the market that we're going to keep supplying into the market on a weekly basis. They've done this persistently since February. But the thing is, with rational expectations or with human behavior, you can't necessarily control human behavior, and human behavior will always factor in that risk, because humans generally are a bit risk averse, and they'll prefer to exercise precautionary measures in the event that things do not go as planned. So despite the fact that the CBN has been, has been very vocal about their stance in ensuring that they're going to keep on injecting dollars into the market, human behavior, rational expectation, a rational manufacturer or a rational economic agent would always like to create that, buffer, so to speak, in the event that things do not fall as planned or go as planned.
Is that the reason why they're refusing to lower their retail prices?
Yes, we're also saying that manufacturers are trying to keep prices elevated at their current levels, because they're trying to recoup on losses they previously made when the naira depreciated to as low as 520. So what we're seeing in the market is they could decide to bring it lower, but at this point, comparing the losses they've made and to the margins they have presently, they're trying to recoup on losses. Now, how long that would take, you can't put a number to it, or how many months or how many weeks. But if prices are to change, it's most likely because a group of manufacturers decide to engage in a price war and undercut each other, and with that, if that should happen, then we should see prices decline.
But then we've not seen any change. We've not seen so much of a change in the power sector, and you've done a power generation analysis and impact. Talk to us a little bit about it.
Okay, so the power sector, what we saw this week was on the 16th, we saw that power generation went down to about 3,521 megawatts. At the beginning of the month, we're about 3,750. This is still, far below what our target is. Our target is about 4,000 megawatts. So, so the power sector is still obviously, is still something that still needs a lot of work, and we are seeing that the Minister of Power, Housing and Works is having a meeting with the World Bank this week, I think between the April 21st or April 23rd, to discuss the power sector recovery implementation plan. If you're looking at power sector so far, based on the NERC report in 2016, there was a target of 1.74 million meters, to increase metering, to ensure that the distribution networks or distribution firms are, able to charge for power usage appropriately. And at the end of the 2016, it was only about 212,000 meters that were installed. This is just 12% of their target. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of things that have to go in there. And we're saying that, the minister is being resilient, is pushing forward. And if we have the World Bank coming in to support us, we should see an improvement in that sector.
So what's your general outlook now for the economy, especially as regards most of the commodities that will still, have to price in their global prices on a domestic level?
So in terms of the outlook, we expect prices to remain relatively flat. What we know is that we see flour, there's a possibility that flour prices could come down, but at the present time it's at 10.5, and that's because we're seeing, a decline in wheat prices at the global market, and we're also seeing an appreciation in the value of the naira, and also improvements in dollar liquidity for manufacturers to import. But in terms of sugar prices are still, relatively high. Cocoa prices are coming down, but they're still relatively high at, 1,895. But regardless of that, commodity prices are likely to remain flat this week.
All right, so fingers crossed on that one.
Yeah.
And hopefully the manufacturers will when they make their money, they should decide to bring down the retail prices, because right now we still have bread at that's the very common commodity that most people eat. Bread is still at a very, very annoyingly high price. A lot of people can't afford it, as basic as it's supposed to be. But Okwemi, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure to have you on the program. But we're back again on Thursday.
Yes.
All right, so hopefully things would have changed before then.
Yes, hopefully.